The moments in our movies that stand out that still scare me. The moment when Katie throws Mika at the camera at the end of Paranormal Activity. The films inside of Sinister, and particularly the one with the parents hanging, but all of the 16mm films in Sinister, I find those incredibly unnerving and disturbing. They certainly make me jump. I certainly recoil from the violence in Halloween. And more recently, the moment where the throat is slit in The Invisible Man when the two women are at the restaurant, that moment is still incredibly unnerving, and I flinch every time I see that. Hey, my name is Jason Blum, and I'm going to be talking to GQ today about some of my favorite and scariest moments in a bunch of Blumhouse movies. So this is the moment in Paranormal Activity. It's Mika's frame, his famous frame, looking at the bed. And this was actually a reshoot that we did. So we got involved with this movie. Oren had sent a rough cut to us. I thought it was very special, but he wanted to make some improvements, and it was very inexpensive. So we did a bunch of different improvements along the way. And one of them was actually this scene. And this is the scene where you're looking at the bed. We think the ghost takes the sheet and pulls it slowly off the bed, and it kind of disappears in the corner of the room. What actually happened is the crew on this movie, as you probably know, was like 2 people. And so now that I was there, it was 3 people. And actually we were on the set and someone else is going to do it. And I said, Oren, please let me do it. I want to pull the sheet. And he let me do it. And I lay down in the very corner of the room, and Oren said, go. And the sheet slowly moved across the bed. It was the cheapest, most practical, scary effect ever done.
I came today because last night I had a dream about this place. I was in this house, but it was late at night.
Insidious was our follow-up to Paranormal Activity, and it was directed by the amazing James Wan, and Lee Wanell wrote it, and they had come up with Saw. He worked in various capacities on all the Saw movies, and this is before James Wan was quite the superstar he is today, although he was just as talented, he wasn't as well known. And I learned a ton about scary movies from James Wan, a ton. I remember, just as an aside, a funny story. When we first screened the movie, people weren't jumping. And I looked at James, I said, what's wrong? I had no idea what was wrong, but I just knew that it wasn't as scary as James promised it would be. And James said, Jason, I know exactly what to do. Give me 2 weeks. He said another screening. It looked like the same exact movie and people were jumping out of their seats. And he had just adjusted the timing of all the scares. And what I learned from James is that the timing of a scare is as important as the timing of a joke. And you could not even be aware, and it can be the same dialogue, the same images, the same everything else, but if the timing isn't exactly right, the scares just don't work. So in this particular scare, which I think is one of the best scares in the movie, Joseph Bashar, who actually did all the music for Insidious, which is amazing, put this very simple demon face on. And I remember when we were on the set, just thinking, doubting James as usual, thinking like, this looks like super campy and like, this is not going to be scary. And when he did it, it wasn't scary at all on the set, which just goes to show you James has every right instinct and I have every wrong one. The one choice I did make that was right was I believed in my filmmaker, and we always do. That's the one thing I've learned over the years, is to bet on our filmmakers. Anyway, James put this thing together. He did that first screening and it was like, oh, we're not quite there. And then the second screening, there were 10 great moments, but that's maybe my favorite because it's so simple and so effective, and it was all because of the brilliance of James Wan.
I can still hear that voice.
Here's a lot of rounds.
What do I do?
You're going to cover the other side of the house. All right, this is our home. Our kids live here. Anybody tries to come in, you blast them. You will not hesitate.
The Purge also holds a special place in my heart. The key to our business in 2012 and today is we look for big concepts, high concept, we say, and low budget. Usually big concept movies or high concept movies are expensive. It's very hard to find a big idea that could be done very inexpensively. And what I loved about The Purge was it was the ultimate high concept, low budget movie. From 7 to 7, all crime is legal. There's total anarchy. America is crazy, but we're going to tell it from the point of view of a single family inside a house. And actually that made it even scarier. And that's really what I loved initially about the concept of The Purge.
You're Mr. and Mrs. I'm sorry to tell you this, but your time is essentially up. And you failed. You failed to deliver the homeless swine. So I bid thee farewell, sweet Sandy. Release the beast boys, let the killing commence.
One of the things James DeMonaco did so well with The Purge is he strung out the story. So if it was a Hollywood version of the Purge, the bad guys would have broken into the house on page 9. But I don't think it happens in The Purge until we're almost halfway through the movie. And the result of that is that you've got comfortable with this. The family's very comfortable. They have all these safeguards. They've been through many purges before. And the audience kind of relaxes. Enough time has gone by in the film that you kind of think no one's ever getting in this house. I mean, after all, the father, his job is selling security systems for houses. You've got to assume he's got the best security system you can buy. And I think one of the most effective scenes in The Purge is when the outside world finally comes inside to the house and you know super bad things are going to happen. And the part of the brilliance of that moment is where it comes in the actual movie. This movie was so good. I'd always wanted to make a movie with Knight because he's one of the great genre filmmakers of our time. And I also thought he would really thrive in our system. It's really an auteur system. We give the filmmaker total creative control. And when I first read the script of Split, the connection to Unbreakable and Glass was not in it. That last scene wasn't in the script. And the movie worked great as a standalone movie. And it really wasn't until much later on that Knight told me that he was going to make it part of this trilogy. And there was even a rights issue, like we had to make it work both ways. We had to make it work independently, and we also had to make it work as part of the 3 movies in case he couldn't figure out the rights situation, which he did. And he kept that. He never circulated a script with that last coda, which connects it to the other 2 movies. And even when we screened the movie, we were very careful. A lot of the times we screened the movie, we left that part out so the secret would remain safe until the film opened. And miraculously, even after screening it at South by Southwest, the secret stayed until opening weekend, which was incredible. The creepiest moment in that movie, although there are a lot, is when Kevin dies. And I guess that's a real tribute to kind of Knight's storytelling, because it's a dialogue scene. It's not action. Nothing happens. No one jumps out. There's not a scare. But the words and the content of what he's saying is so surprising and disarming. And you start to catch up.
Kill me. Kill me. Wait. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. He can't handle reality. My name is Jade. Has Dr. Fletcher been getting our emails?
The great thing about Split is that Knight keeps the audience just far enough behind the story that you're kind of on the edge of your seat. And that's a moment where he brings you closer up to the action that's actually happening at the time on screen. And it's just an incredibly effective moment in the film.
What about your mother?
What about her?
Wait, are we?
Where were you when she died?
I don't want to think about that.
When I first read the script of Get Out, I remember thinking kind of it checks every box for the kind of movie that we're looking for. So at the company, what I look for is the movie has to scare me or be unnerving. It has to be able to be shot relatively inexpensively, which that was possible with Get Out. We looked for originals and originality, and there was more of that baked into every page of Get Out than maybe any other film or television project we ever did. And I read it, I loved it, I met with Jordan, and I wanted to make sure that, because the movie is about a lot of things, but it's obviously about race, and I wanted to make sure I was comfortable talking with the director about race and that Jordan would be comfortable talking about it too, because clearly that was something we were going to have to do if we were going to endeavor to make this movie together. And I remember being incredibly impressed with Jordan all across the board in terms of his grasp of the script and his super specific vision. And though he'd never directed before, he'd been a showrunner, which I think in a lot of ways is harder than a director. So he was fully equipped to direct this movie, and could talk about race very easily. And we had a great first meeting, and we were off to the races. Now, one of the most unsettling moments, I think they're bigger kind of jump scare moments in Get Out, but one of the most unnerving moments is when Catherine Keener hypnotizes Daniel, and she's slowly stirring the teacup. And I think what's so spectacular about that moment is Jordan has set it up in such a way that you kind of think like these people are pretty creepy and pretty awful, and you kind of think like her stirring the teacup, like nothing's really gonna, like she's just bananas, and it works, and he's hypnotized. And I think that in itself is shocking enough, and then the fact that you see how he's hypnotized and him falling into the sunken place, which is done incredibly simply and elegantly, but it's incredibly unsettling because you think these people are off their rockers. And the fact that she's able to do this makes you suddenly feel that you're worried about Daniel's life, and that these guys may be really evil, and it's going to be very, very hard to overcome, and really, really hard to literally get out of the house. My personal favorite moment in Get Out is when you realize that the character played by Allison Williams is not what she appears, and in fact she's evil, just like her mother and father. And that happens when Daniel discovers inside this kind of cubbyhole attic kind of space these old photographs where Allison has had a series of black boyfriends, and it's very clear that she's going out with Daniel because he's black, and it's clear that she has a plan for him, which is going to be similar to the plan for her 10 past ex-boyfriends. And it's the moment when he realizes it's not just her parents who are weird, but she is too. And I think what makes that moment so effective is most people, including me, when I read the script, just don't see that coming. You don't see any of that coming. And Jordan just so cleverly orchestrates everything. If you watch the movie again, there are all these tells. But the first time I read it, or the first time you see the film, you really don't know, or you're not sure that she's bad until that moment. And you have the realization along with Daniel, and it's probably my favorite moment in the movie.
Hey, are you ready? Happy birthday. Thanks, but I already ate it last night. What? You killed me.
Chris Landis is one of my favorite filmmakers. We've worked with him on a bunch of movies. We met on Paranormal Activity 2, and he worked on 2, 3, 4, and he's working, if we ever get this reboot up, he's working on the new incarnation of Paranormal Activity, whatever that may be. Most of the movies that we've made aren't brand new ideas that come out. They're movies that haven't really been able to find a home and have been lying around for a while. And Happy Death Day was one of those movies. I think it had been, I forget, it was called something else, but it had been written 4 or 5 years before we made it. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. And there's one moment, it's very confusing. I think one of the fun things about the movie is you don't really know what's happening. And the moment the tree actually figures out who is killing her and why she killed her or how she killed her, you have these series of revelations, and Chris goes to these flashbacks. They're things that you've seen through the course of the movie that now suddenly in this scene make sense to the audience at the exact same time they make sense to Tree. And that's a terrific scene in the movie because Chris is able to tie up all these things that seem to be not connected in this really, really elegant way.
Colorado Springs chapter of the Ku Klux Klan, please leave a message, and God bless white America.
Jordan and I were in my office, and we were meeting Spike to talk to him about, his desire to do Black Klansman, and it was really one of the most exciting meetings I certainly ever had. Spike Lee has been one of my heroes since I first started. I made a movie called Kicking and Screaming that Noah Baumbach directed many, many years ago. And one of the directors, we talked about having a successful career in independent film, and the success of She's Gotta Have It was Spike Lee. And I never met him before. So anyway, here he was sitting in my office talking about how he was going to direct Black Klansman. It was awesome. It was amazing. We said yes, 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 yes 100 times. John David, who plays Ron Stallworth, who was there, and I met Ron, and Ron actually had his KKK card at a reading we did. We did a reading of the script at Spike's office in Brooklyn, and there was Ron, and he passed his KKK card around. And I will tell you that my favorite scene in the movie is when he actually calls the head of the KKK, and they believe him.
What's your story?
Well, since you asked, I hate Jews. Huh? Spics and mix. Dagos and chinks. But my mouth to God's ears, I really hate those and anyone else really that doesn't have pure white Aryan blood running through their veins.
I will say that when you read it, it doesn't have the same impact. But when you see a black man calling the head of the KKK and them having this very friendly conversation, it's a great example of how in storytelling in movies, like that 10-second or 15-second phone call just says more about how stupid the KKK is and ignorant and backwards than almost anything else you could do. And it was such a simple moment and such a spectacular moment, and a moment that could only work in a film.
You are just the kind of guy that we are looking for. Listen, when can you meet?
How about Friday night after I get off work?
That's a deal, buddy boy. We'll get right back to you with the details. Take care now.
God bless white America.
It didn't really work in Ron's book. It didn't really work in the script. The power of it is only seen when you can see it. And that by far is certainly my favorite moment in Black Klansman.
Did I just hear you use your real name?
Oh, motherfucker.
Email to David Gordon Green's a great filmmaker. I've always admired him. I sent him an email, and it was one word. It said Halloween ? And he wrote me back. He said, I think he said I'm in. I think that's what he said, or something close to that. And that was the beginning of the new iteration of Halloween. And neither David or I wanted to do it without John Carpenter. And so we went to John and asked him to participate and be an executive producer with us. And I'm very glad he said yes, because if he hadn't said yes, I don't think either one of us would have made the movie. So it was amazing, and we got Jamie Lee Curtis back, and just really fun to do. And the fan base around Halloween is very rabid, so we were, concerned about making it new, but also not making a mistake. And I think David did an amazing job in the movie. And obviously the biggest moment in that movie is when we think Jamie Lee Curtis has finally gotten, after 45 years, has finally gotten her revenge on Michael Myers and finally been able to kill Michael Myers. And that happens right at the end of the movie when he's trapped in the basement and she she throws the fire in and shuts this trap door, and we're led to believe that he burns to death. And that was maybe the culmination of 45, how many years, 45 or 50 years of Halloween.
Kayla?
So we did the live with Veena Sood, who was, you know, one of my favorite directors. I had a general meeting with her, and I said, we want to do anything you want to do. And not that long after, she gave me the script of The Lie, which I loved. I loved it because it was so relatable. It just poses the question: how far would you go to protect your child? How many laws would you break? What would you do to protect your child?
We were just joking around.
Where's your friend? Where is he? Where's your friend?
That question is posed at the very, very beginning of the movie. So there's this scene, which I think is the most talked about because it sets up that question. At the very beginning of the film, when Peter Skarsgård finds the character played by Joey King on the bridge, and Joey admits to her dad what she's done.
I pushed her.
You kind of see the whole next 90 minutes of the movie on her dad's face, because you see his wheels turning and you see him starting to make little decisions, little twists to the truth, which I think everyone knows for no other reason than it's the beginning of the movie, are going to grow. And that's a lot of what the movie is about, is that one lie begets another, and a smaller lie begets a bigger lie. But again, the great fun thing about the movie, or the interesting thing about the movie, is it's the one instance, or one of the few instances, you can really forgive someone for lying to a certain point. Then it gets out of control. But I think the reason that's the most effective moment in the movie is because it sets up the premise of what you're about to see. Veena does such a good job of building to that place that even though you understand why they're doing it, you realize at that point that these people are out of their mind. Thank you so much, GQ, for letting me talk about a few of my favorite moments from a small handful of our movies, but there are many more to come.